So welcome, Samy. We're here today with Samy Chong. Samy is a master certified coach, certified coactive coach, and also what you could call a coach to capitalist with a conscience. He's inspiring leaders to lead authentically, integrating humanistic values into their workplaces, and in turn build stronger organizations where they can leave their greatest legacy. That is a tall order and one that I know he is equipped to bring forth in people. He's a father, a friend, a lover of life, living in vibrance, fun, and success. Welcome, Samy.
Thank you so much, Lily. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to speak with you today. I'm so excited to chat with you. Based on our last conversation, you've had quite a path to coaching. Can you tell us a little bit about your previous career and how you segued into coaching?
Mm. I look at coaching as a calling. I think a lot of us being coaches is in our bones, meaning that it's the essence of what we do. So 2001, I ran restaurants, catering company in Toronto. We excel in many areas of the statistic of any restaurants. But I also getting tired, meaning that I wasn't growing, I wasn't evolving. Took my two kids to New York City. That was 2001 March break. And by the time we got home from New York City by train, it was a long ride. I took care of the restaurant and then I drove my kids to my wonderful previous wife home. Notice I did say wonderful and previous.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I come back, it was a really, really tired, long day. I remember when I pulled open the bedspread sheet, there was this letter from my daughter that basically says, well, Dad, what are you doing? You
Oh,
love helping people. There's a spiritual side in you. So bottom line was, I didn't know what I was going to do, put the restaurant up for sale. And by May 31st, the restaurant was sold to my accountant because he did my book for the last 19 years.
wow.
So look what happened in 2001. 9/11 hit,
Yeah.
SARS, mad cow. If there was an angel in my life, which is my 11 or 12-year-old daughter, she was instigating and telling me to sell. So bottom line was somebody said, go take this course, which was a CTI introductory course. I just knew I was home the minute I took the course. That's how I got started.
That's beautiful. Oh, such a major transition as well, going from a very successful entrepreneur, restaurateur into coaching.
A lot of parallelism with what I do as a coach to what I did at a restaurant, even though it's a very distinct business. First, I love business. I love making money. I love helping people. So if you think about coaching, I've always said coaching is not a business.
Hmm.
Coaching accentuate what you do well as a business.
Ah.
With restaurant, what I loved was I knew my why. My why was I was in the hospitality business.
Hmm.
What does that mean? 5 things you have to do well in the restaurant business: good price, cleanliness, value for the money, uh, service, obviously, to get to what I call the minimum standard. Our why, our purpose was hospitality, hospitality, hospitality. What does it mean? When a person bring you the dessert, or when they ring in the dessert order, they already have your check beside them. So the minute you ask for the check, it's right there. Hospitality really is the unexpected service that you
Hmm.
give the client. Perfect anticipation is another way to describe it. So we drill this philosophy into our staff, meaning if you see somebody's not drinking anything and they're ordering something spicy, you automatically bring a glass of water. If you're going to bring something that, for example, like our Fritz, steak and Fritz, you order bring ketchup. You don't need to ask. That's the brilliantness of understanding why you do what you do, what purpose behind that. So in the restaurant, we did well because of the hospitality. People kept coming
Mhm.
back. We hit all the markers, but it's the unexpected that allowed them to say, it felt great coming to this.
Yeah. There's a certain magic there when your needs are thought about for you ahead of time and someone is there taking care of you and just putting in that special touch, that special je ne sais quoi to make sure that you have an exceptional experience. It's not just a meal, it's an experience with someone that's really caring for you, which I love.
And, and you just identify one of the great quality of a coach where it can never have that kind of caring, that kind of conversation, that kind of depth,
Mm,
that kind of holding the person creative, resourceful, and whole, but allowing them to flourish and grow because of your love, your respect, your kindness, your unwavering caring for them. That's the spillover from the restaurant business to the coaching side of the business.
I love it. I love it. And there is that also that central value, that love, that care, but also this concept of nourishment, right? So on one side it's food and experience, on the other side it's really nourishing someone's soul. And maybe that takes us into a little bit of how your daughter told you in that beautiful letter she wrote you when she was 11 that you found on your bed, that she knows that you're a spiritual person, you have so much to give to the world. How do you, as a coach, integrate some of these spiritual principles?
I just make spirituality equate to love.
Mm,
How do you care for some people? How do you deeply nourish their needs? How do you nourish the deepest part of them so that
mhm.
they feel seen, feel heard, feel respected, feel all the stuff that you want? Then they're ready to learn. That's a big part of that journey.
Yeah, yeah, you've touched upon so many important nuances that are part of the coaching client relationship. But before we dive into that rich material, I wanted to move back to that phrase that you incorporated, that spirituality is for people who have been to hell and back. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean by that?
I think a lot of time when I do a speaking engagement, they enjoy what was being shared. And always there's a person in the audience that would ask, what religion or philosophy do you subscribe? My response has always been, right now the whole audience is connecting with me and the message.
Hmm.
The minute I tell you I'm this or I'm that, we all scramble into our little corner of, oh, that's not my religion or that's not my belief.
It's divisive. Yeah.
Exactly. So my conversation with people is, if you really want to know me about that, you can see me privately. But otherwise, my message is about how to touch people's heart. Spirituality is how to give love to an organization. How do you care for people?
Hmm.
In the restaurant business, the average turnover is 350%, Lily.
Wow.
That means every single position is turnover 3.5 times. Our restaurant was about 6.2 to 6.5%,
Oh my
which is
gosh.
unheard of.
It's a family.
More
Yeah.
than a family sometimes. My chef stayed with me for 16 years.
Oh my
My
gosh.
manager stayed with me for 17 years. You can't get to that place. I've always said you can buy their back. You got to earn their heart. In order to earn their heart, you got to care about the people. So some of my staff was Sri Lankan. They have problem with immigration. They have problem with language. So I would go line up. 6 o'clock in the morning to make sure we are able to come back to the restaurant slightly after 9 o'clock because we're the first one in line to deal with their immigration challenges.
Oh, wow.
All I know is this: the
Yeah.
more you learn how to serve and care for people, really that's what coaching is. And you add the dimension of what you're good at. In my case, I love building businesses. I love growing, scaling businesses. You add those two together, you can be and do whatever you want out of this business.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I love the combination between serving and caring, and then also actualizing, helping people create the scale, the revenue, the business growth, the model that will take them to the next level. So that's a dynamic combination there, and one that's based in servant leadership. So really incredibly important for the world that we live in today. I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit more about why having a coach is so important. I mean, I think that's innate in some of the comments you've made, but what can coaching do for people?
In my own personal experience, I had two coaches at one time. One was personal, one was business when I started this trajectory. Being a coach and being a recipient of being a client, here's what I do know. Our world today is moving way too fast.
Yeah.
Most people know how to, what I call, work in their life, but not on their life.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about the average people from the time the alarm clock wake them up to the time they go to bed, they're running. They're running. But they don't take time to reflect and think what to get to where I need to faster. It's almost like the adage or the phrase that I coined: if you don't slow down, you can't speed up.
Yeah.
So if you think about coaching, all we are doing once a week, I'm slowing you down, making sure is, what is your vision?
Mm.
How much money do you want to make? What's your perfect life looks like? What's your perfect relationship looks like? What's your perfect, in my case, law firm, because that's my target market, looks like?
Mm-hmm.
Once you understand that, it's like a relationship, Lily. If two people on a starting gate, two arrows comes out, obviously it's very strong, very whatever. But if one arrow is half a degree off, you know in a couple of 100 yards, you can't see the arrow. The whole idea is begin with the end in mind, what the target is. My job is to help them always focus what the target, how to get there faster. And that's why a coach is important, to help you get every morsel of what you want in how to live this life and get there faster. That's the only thing. Why does Tiger Woods need a coach? Not because he doesn't know how to play golf.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to play a better game of golf. Most of my clients, they're very wealthy. They've done very well for themselves. How do you now live a more balanced? How do you live a life where you're not always, I've always said, you guys are working way too hard for your money. That's a big part of that, being a great coach, I believe.
Yeah. You did mention that you work with a lot of trial attorneys and high-level executives, also entrepreneurs. These are highly intelligent, highly educated people, successful in their lives, and you're taking them a step beyond that. I'm curious, since you did talk about balance as well, and I think balance is something that we're all more acutely aware of during this crisis that we're experiencing in the current times. How do you help people achieve balance? How do you help people improve their emotional quotient, if you will, their EQ, not just their IQ?
So because my niche is very specific, trial lawyers, American trial lawyers. So one of their struggle is they've built a good business, but they don't know how to sustain it. But because
Mm.
I've been an entrepreneur all my life and I love business, there are certain things that I do that are allowing them to whether it's delegation, whether it's having backup and training, all that business acumen I'm able to bring forth to their life so that they can start to live a more balanced life. For example, if you don't put down what a balanced life look like for you, or if you can't articulate it, I can't help you.
Yeah, you'll never get there.
And if you tell me that means 1 month off in December, 1 month off in June, I know what to do. If you tell me it's 1 week off every month, I know what to do. So one of the most important criteria is, what does a balanced, perfect life looks like for you? Now, don't get me wrong. Some people don't need a lot of holiday because they love their work. Some people, they're getting to a place now where they need to disengage. So I do a lot of succession planning because of that. So articulate what that looks like. And every week on the call, we begin to zoom in. What can we delegate? What can we let go? And so on and so forth. The second thing you talk about is emotional intelligence. Most of these attorneys, they're extremely, like you said, they're playing in a different field. There's no way you can argue with them. And
that's for sure.
Because they're mostly alpha male, even women who is trial attorney, you can bet that their energy is along the line of an alpha male. So the counterpoint is emotional intelligence, dealing with emotions, they're very poor at it. So a big part of the emotional intelligence is allowing them to start to be more creative in your asking questions. So one of the things I do is I do a 360. What do you want the CEO of this law firm to stop doing, start doing, continue to do? I think being made aware and conscious by your team or by your staff, that's the first step. You gotta be aware what you're doing that is not helping or satisfying your team. From there, we build. We coach the CEO, we coach the team, we do strength finder exercise. I do the strategic planning once a year. So that's how I built my business.
Yeah. You bring up something really important in terms of culture in organizations. For example, high-powered law firms having more of a dominant style of leadership versus more of a consultative style. If you're, I mean, gender aside, if you're looking at it through a perspective of Strengths Finder or of any kind of assessment that sort of looks at leadership style, it's going to be very dominant. It's going to be litigious. That's just the qualities that are there. And I'm curious, how do you get them to open up to be vulnerable enough to go through a 360 exercise? What does that look like leading in?
I read somewhere a long time ago a quote by Dr. DeMartini. This is what he says: the further you go on the inside, the further your impact is on the outside. One of the things my daughter always says to me, Dad, you just had a 3-minute conversation with him and you knew his wife was this, you knew he was sick, whatever. Here is the invitation. We are all spiritual beings having a human experience. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. As a human being, we sense, we intuitive know. Is it safe to have this conversation with you or not? If you haven't done your inner work, if you haven't dealt with some of your vulnerability, just like when you said to me, is it okay to talk about my daughter's letter? I said to you, there's nothing you can't talk about because there's no subject that I'm afraid to talk about. If you can't be vulnerable, and Brene Brown, The Courage to Lead is a great book for people that are listening on this call. If you can't go there, don't expect your client to go there.
Right.
All I know in this life is you attract what is it that you need to learn. If you are not comfortable with money, or you live in a scarcity mentality, you're going to attract clients that struggle paying you, don't come on call, like you are what you attract. So as you deal with what I call your vulnerability or your fears or your guilt, I don't care what it is.
Mm.
That's how you have more channels open to the clients. The more you're open, the more you can do this deeper, what I call inner work as a coach.
That's exceptional advice, especially for the coaches that are also listening in. How do you do your own inner work to be able to go deeper with your clients, and understanding that law of attraction that exists and what's coming to you? The universe reminding us that we have to work through our own things. So I
You
love
don't have a
that. Thank
choice.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have a choice if you want to have that kind of effect. Now, don't get me wrong. These lessons come to you anyway.
Yeah.
Where do you have pain in your life? I mean, let's go there, okay? It comes to you. If
Mhm.
you don't learn it, it's going to come back again.
And
That's,
again and
yeah.
again.
So I jokingly says, really, I'm seriously, either you evolve or you come back to learn the lesson. I mean, that's your choice. You just keep coming back until you learn it. That's Earth School 101, but that's my sense.
Yeah, that's incredible and definitely a lot of food for thought. So you'll have our listeners maybe doing some journaling or calling up for a coaching session after this because we all have that. Absolutely. I'm curious too, Sammy, what would you say the most powerful tools in your coaching toolbox are? How do you get the best out of your clients?
Tool number one, every one of us have a belief system. By the time you reach 18, you've been taught, you've been told, no, you can't do it, you shouldn't do it, don't touch, don't whatever. Negativity runs our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So one of those beliefs is money don't grow on tree. You can't make this kind of whatever. The relationship with money blocks a lot of coaches, blocks a lot of people. Until you shift and change your belief, there's an actually exercise. If this is your belief, you can see how you live your life. Change your belief, change your life. Change your thought, change the way you attract things in your life. So one
Mm-hmm.
of the powerful tools is I clean and cleanse. What are some of the beliefs that's holding you back? And what's the new empowered belief you need to have? So when I shifted from I deserve this abundance, I honor my worthiness to receive, it's about shifting and changing that core belief. I mapped out my entire life, my relationship with my grandkids before my daughter was even married. I have a vision. I have a vision of everything that I have, I vision, whether it's the sport cars that I drive, whether the lifestyle that I live, I have vision what it would be like to live this perfect life. Without vision, we perish. Without vision, we lose hope. When you have a compelling vision, when you know that's what you deserve, the universe have no choice but to bring it to you. Doing these two fundamental things allowed my relationship with my client to go so much easier, quicker to get to whatever it is that they want. Whether it's the kind of money they want to make, the kind of business they want to build, whether it's the kind of size of law firm, that's the gift that I bring. So those are the two core tools aside from many tools that I have.
So tell me a little bit about your personal style as a coach. You've talked about some of the tools in your toolkit, some of the principles you apply to your coaching, but when clients are interacting with you, how do you show up?
One crucial belief I have is I'm in the world, but not of the world. What does that mean? I'm merely a conduit. Do I have the tools? Yes. Do I have the skills after just about 10,000 hours of coaching? Yes. Do I know the law business inside out? Yes. There's not one problem you can bring me in the law business I haven't heard of. Walk beside the client through. There's not much.
Yeah.
Here's the fundamental difference, Lily. Before I get on the call, I always quiet myself down and I always invoke the spirit. Spirit, I don't care what you believe, God, you believe. One of my beliefs is you got to have a relationship with this invisible world. I don't care what you call it. I call it God. If you don't
Mhm.
have a relationship with this invisible world, you're working way too hard to make a success of your life. You got to find a way to make peace with this invisible world. My way, before I get on the call, I quiet down and say, you know what? I'm a conduit. I've got all sorts of tools, but you lead and guide. You tell me. So a lot. You tell me what to say. You tell me. I sometimes I can pretty much tell you when I'm in that zone. I'm sometimes not even aware of what I'm talking about. I just let the spirit guide. And
Mhm.
that's my methodology. Do I have other methodology? If it's a client is pretty new, they're basically, because I've coached now 101 law firm, 127 attorneys. In the beginning, the relationship, there's 3 stages. The first one is obviously dependent. I've got some subject expertise. They're asking me questions. That's a big part of me helping them not to reinvent the wheel after we've done so many law firms. The second one from dependent is independent. Now they can sort of operate without me as a coach because they've got some skills and master whatever. The highest one is the interdependent. But I know you well enough. I'm like an extra computer parked beside your brain. I'm your unbiased sounding board. That's where the download piece comes, because a lot of time client would say to me, I don't know how you know it, but that was what I was just talking to my wife about yesterday. Or I don't know how you know it. That's exactly what I was thinking. When you
Yeah.
are tapping into the field, there's a field that we're all connected. When you allow the spirit to guide, you're tapping into that field. When you tap into that field, which every one of us is tap into, some of us are more conscious, some are more unconscious, that's when you do sacred God's work. And that's, I believe, what we do as coaches in that field.
I love that framing and that discussion about what it's really like to be interdependent, because as human beings, we are interdependent, we are connected. So seeing that happen in high level coaching relationships with trial attorneys is just mind blowing, because you wouldn't necessarily think that they'd be oriented that way. But if you're there, if you're showing up with love and caring and holding the agenda for the client and wanting to see the best for them and having them defeat those limiting beliefs and hold a vision, that's where the magic happens. So
Mm.
thank you for walking us through that. I was curious too, if you could tell us a little bit about how people can evaluate their coach as a match. Have you seen instances where either for you or for other coaches you know, or for other clients who have had experience with coaches where there just wasn't the right kind of fit? How do you know if your coach is for you?
So on my website, it's been a long time, don't hold me to it. I know there's a link how to evaluate a coach. So that's one. You can look at the template. Number two,
Yeah.
I always talk about resonance. Now,
Mm.
when I hire my first coach, because I was such a giver, such a server, such a servant leader, I was just so in awe of the fact that she's asking me questions. It's like my daughter says to me, Dad, when you go on a date, stop trying to ask so many questions because they're not your client. So a lot of time we get caught up by our, what I call, in my case, the deficiency. Wow, somebody's paying attention to me even though I'm paying for it. I
Hmm.
think you have to discern what is it the assignment at hand? Where are you going with the coaching? And I always do a demo coaching call. Is this coaching bringing me closer to that? So the discernment, the clarity of the assignment is number two. Number three, energy. You know if you have to push back, you know when it doesn't flow, you know when here's what client says to me at the end of the call. I know every time when I call, I'm inspired, I'm grounded, I'm able to recharge to what it is. You have to find what is it that you do that gives off whatever that is. So this past week, I got another sample coaching call, and I know he has done 2 coaching calls before already, a sample coaching call. By the time I finish, he goes, I'm hired. He didn't even have to think about it. Well, the other 2, he's still thinking about it. My bottom line is, how much have you touched the individual soul? How much have you touched what exactly they're coming to you for? How much have you allowed them to source some sort of solution, direction, or peace, Lily? Peace, making peace with what that is. That's how you know you have a client. And I know because they want more of me. They know the conversation they want more of. That's when you know you've touched their heart, touched their soul. I think that's what you are. I think that's
Absolutely. Yes, no, absolutely. I love that. I definitely understand that feeling of resonance, and I loved that you were able to also bring in a little bit of an analytical sphere where you're trying to decide, well, is this actually clearly getting me where I want to go through affecting my goals for my coaching? And then just that self-awareness, that evaluation when you come out of a coaching call. How do I feel? Do I feel grounded? Do I feel inspired? Do I feel passionate? Is this working? Is this feeding me? Or is this feeling off? Is this feeling dissonant? So absolutely. And I think it's important also that you outline that people should not necessarily just get drawn into feeling heard by anyone, but have these other evaluative criteria to understand if it's serving them. Yeah.
I was just too innocent. Anybody that will listen to me, I just go, okay, here's my money, whatever. But a long way since then.
Yeah, it feels so good to be heard though, but when you have that right fit, it can go so much further, which is the power of coaching, right?
That's the gift we bring. Again,
Yeah.
we got to do our own inner work. That's how we get there.
And speaking of that, speaking of this work, why we do it, what part of it is perhaps most meaningful to you?
I looked at my why. The why for the restaurant business was hospitality, even though I got to do those 5 things I talked to you about very clearly. The why for this business is, my why is to inspire the inspirer to higher awareness and consciousness. I only need a very few handful of clients to make an exceptionally great living because of the fees that I charge, number 1. Number 2, I inspire one, if they have a staff of 15 or 20, the largest law firm I have is about 100. If they can make that culture the way we talk about how to integrate spirituality, which is love, caring for clients, they're going to have ripple effect. So my why is very clear: to inspire the inspirer, meaning very powerful people who's got lots of connections. One of the lawyer recently did a webinar like this, interview me, because I'm trying to get him to live more of his purpose. He did one of these blog or these question like what you and I are doing. He's got like 7,000 views. So my point to you is, he's living his purpose. I'm inspiring the inspirer to do whatever that is. That's the first part of my why. Raising consciousness is, the more you are conscious, the more you are aware, the more you live a what I call enlightened, aware life, things comes easier. Things flow. Again, It comes from the book, I don't have it here with me, uh, Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins. 60 something years old, went back to school to be a PhD so people doesn't think he's a quack. If you look at the scale of consciousness, some people call it below the line, above the line.
Mm.
When you live below the line of neutrality, so the lowest one is shame, like that's the energy, that's the emotion. We shame people. And then there's anger, there's fear, whatever, right? That's below the line. Above the line, think of the metaphor when the rocket is leaving the earth. It takes the big fuel booster just to get it out of the gravity. The minute it's out of the gravity, it drops it. It takes very little fuel to go wherever. My task is to bring the client from wherever they're at. The minute I get to that zone, that's where the interdependent, that's where we build, that's where magic happened. That's where miracle happened as well, Lily. So my task, inspiring the inspirer to higher awareness and consciousness. That's what I do. And that's the most fulfilling part of my work is I'm saving a soul by moving them to the scale of consciousness. That's how I translate that piece.
That's a beautiful way of framing it. And it's incredible too to look at the fact that you're working primarily with this niche clientele, these high-powered attorneys that have the opportunity to cause a ripple effect throughout their organizational cultures and throughout society. And when you talk about that line, at the very midpoint where that line exists on the bottom, under the line, below the line is pride, and above the line is courage.
Yeah.
Right? So you have pride, neutrality, and then and courage. So they are kind of right there. And to be the spark that allows them to shift and to climb and then to take off like a rocket, as you said, that's just beautiful. I love it. So perhaps as we round out towards the end of our interview, we've covered so much amazing material, deeply inspiring, enriching, framing, and information about how people can raise their consciousness, how they can build better conscious culture within their organizations, how they can bring more balance into their lives. Maybe since we are still under this COVID-19 pandemic, we're having a racist pandemic, our world is hurting. What are we learning collectively? Why is this work so essential right now? If you had to maybe put it on a billboard for other people to see, what would that say?
Well, first of all, no accident why we're here. Because I've always said we can't destroy Mother Earth. Mother Earth will destroy us before she let us destroy Mother Earth. So, 1, 2. On the spiritual sphere, we're actually moving from what we call a Piscean age to an Aquarius age. The quality of a Piscean age are dominant, control, manipulation. It's all about me. It's about greed. That's the characteristic of a Piscean age. And I believe we do that every 2,000 years, it changes. We have crossed to the Aquarius age. Aquarius age is the energy of win-win-win, collaboration, servant leaders, how may I serve? That's the energy the world is shifting to. That's why you see a lot of these Black Lives Matter, pandemic, it's all about how to retweak, re-energize, rework, whatever it is. Everything is being shaken up. The CEO of Spotify, I believe, in New York City just says the 2,200 people that being employed in downtown Manhattan don't come back to work. You're all working from home going forward. The amount of travel, the amount of stress, the amount of driving, 2,200 people doesn't have to come to work anymore. So we're going through this transition. As challenging, as dark, as difficult, and some of us that are energy sensitive have problem holding all their energy, remember it's always darkest before dawn. We're going through that stage. That also means each of us must begin to do our inner work or continue to do our inner work, especially if you're a coach listening to this. That means you are now the frontline worker of this, what I call spiritual work or this inner work. But if you can't do the work, if you don't do it yourself. So I've explained to you on a very high level why we're going through what we're going through. It's exactly what we need to clean, cleanse, whatever it is that's going on that causes so much pain, so much suffering in the universe. So the billboard, the thing I would say to you is, I've said one already, which the first one would be, the further you go on the inside, the further your impact is on the outside. If you don't do your inner work, don't expect other people to change if you are not doing your own work. It can't happen, okay? That's very powerful. Second one I already shared with you also, you got to find a way to have a relationship with the invisible world. We come here buck naked, we leave buck naked, we go back to where we come from. That world is invisible. Find a way to deal with death, find a way to make peace with death, find a way to deal with your fear, find a way to deal with your guilt. All those things are part of dealing with the invisible world, whatever that is. A great resource material is Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She's written so many materials. She struggled with people. Why? She's what they call a death doctor. She's the ending stage. She's there. I think she witnessed over 1,100 or 2,100. I forgot the numbers. So she struggled with why some people go peacefully, some people go kicking, screaming, trying to grab their last breath. So read up on her. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, fantastic folk, begin to understand what that is. Third, in order to live a life of your design, you got to have a vision. What does your perfect life look like? If you don't know where you're going, how do you know what direction to go? Right? Jack the Rabbit have a conversation with the turtle because he's at a fork in the road. He asked the turtle, which road should I go? His best friend, the turtle, says, where are you going? Jack says, I don't know. Turtle says, it doesn't matter. Your work on this earth, be very, very clear. What is it that you really, 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 really want? What do you want to experience? What kind of lifestyle? What kind of relationship? What kind of intimacy? What kind of house you want to live? The more you're able to articulate it, what kind of clients do you want? What is the before picture? What's the after picture? These are all inner work. It takes time to do it. The more compelling your vision is, the more you'll spend energy on it, the faster you're going to get to where you're at. Last one. So the first three things I already told you. I'm going to add one more.
And we're on the highway then. We have multiple billboards, but I love it.
My apologies.
No, it's good.
The last billboard. One of the questions, I call it bookend, that I asked myself when I was going through this process. If tomorrow is my last day to live on this earth, what do I need to do today? So that question cleans out. Like, I didn't have a great relationship with my mom, mainly because I didn't go to her church, so I became the black sheep. So when mom wasn't doing well, I had to ask the question, if mom check out tomorrow, what do I need to do today? So sometimes I need to call, sometimes I need to visit, sometimes I say, I'm not going to go there because I'm going to get a lecture. She's going to tell me why I didn't go to her church. So when you ask the question, if this is my last day or tomorrow's my last day, what do I need to do today? You clean, you cleanse, you make peace, you say what you need to say. So that front end piece is clean and clear. That's the front end. That's the book end, one end. The back end, once you answer that question every day until you clean, cleanse, whatever, I've got another 50 years more to live. What would I do? See, now you got the both end. And that's how you clean and cleanse and live a life of your desire.
Yeah. I especially love that last billboard because it is that bookend model where you're saying, if this is my last day on earth, what do I need to clear out? What is most important? And then that sort of inspirational clean slate to envision, well, what's next for the 50 years? What do I need to do? So that is an amazing way to wind down on what has been an incredible interview, so full of wisdom and heart. And thank you so much, Samy, for being here with us today.
My pleasure.
People will be able to connect with you through information on link to the video. So thank you for the work that you're doing in the world. And on behalf of future clients and coaches that are benefiting from your expertise and wisdom, thank you.
And I also appreciate your questions. I also appreciate the depth. I know you've done a lot of research to do this, so thank you so much for that, to allow my message to carry through. So I honor that as well.
Oh,
Namaste.
my pleasure. Namaste.